Okay, Clark Cummings, you got some questions? Well, what are we talking about today? What's your question of the day? I'm ready.
Today, I want to talk about throughout your collegiate tennis coaching career, if it's over. Tell me about one of your best players.
Well, I don't know if I think my career's over. 25 years is enough. 25 years is enough. Best player, one of my best players, especially on the male side, Izak van der Merwe. Now it's spelled Izak van der Merwe, V-A-N, but he told me it was van der Merwe. So Izak van der Merwe, one of my best players for sure.
How and where did you find Izak?
Well, I think first of all, how good was Izak, right? I mean, you saw him play; he was pretty good, right?
Yeah, very good player.
So Izak became he was an ATP player. So at the ATP level, he was like 110 in the world, 113. Played main draw of Wimbledon, won some big prize money tournaments. I think some 50s, 75s. In college tennis, he made the semifinals or better in all three national championships, All American indoors and NCAAs. He made semifinals or better in all three of them in singles and doubles over a 2-year period, his junior and senior years. So sorry about that, but now I forgot the question. What was the question?
So where did you find Izak?
Where did I find him? Well, at the time we had an assistant coach at Old Dominion, a good friend of mine, John Hill. And John, he had some contacts in South Africa. So John went over there to recruit a female player. And she actually ended up coming to Old Dominion. So anyway, so John's over in South Africa. And this is before the internet. Or if there was internet, maybe it was dial up at best. So anyway, so John's over there and he's looking for players for us. And so I would call John to check in, micromanage, whatever you want to call it. So I'd call John to check in, and I checked in with him a couple of times, and so he was going to a tournament looking at players. And so I'd have to call the hotel front desk, and then they would connect me to John. So he would say call in the afternoons, most of the time. So one day I called, and John is. They said, "Oh, Mr. Hill is conducting a seminar." I'm like, "Man, what do you mean seminar? Why is John over there doing a seminar?" So I go, "Is there any way you can get John on the phone?" And they go, "Well, we'd be interrupting the seminar." So I go, "That's okay, it'll be fine." And so anyway, so John comes to the phone. I said, "John, you're doing seminars?" He goes, "No, all the parents wanted to talk about college tennis, so I just told them to meet me back at the hotel because it was just so taxing to talk to them all individually." So during this time that he's telling me this, he goes, "Oh, by the way, I offered a scholarship to a guy that's pretty good." And I go, "Well, how much was the scholarship?" And I think he says like 17,000. I'm like, "My God, I mean, it's only 20,000 for a full at the time. Um, you gave me, we've never given that much money. Is he good?" He goes, "Well, I think he'd be good." And he goes, "But he does have a hitch in his serve." And I'm like, "Man, you just offered almost a full scholarship to a dude with the hitch in his serve." So that's pretty much how Izak was identified. Now, later on, I had to re-recruit him because he was coming to Old Dominion, but then he was getting some opportunities to go play a professional with funding opportunities that were coming to light. And so I had to convince his parents that he really wasn't that good and this would be the best opportunity. So I think I talked to his father one time for about 2.5 hours on a ride from Johannesburg to Cape Town. And I think I envisioned they were in a station wagon and Izak was in the back, sort of looking out the back, and I talked to his father the whole time. So that's how we identified Izak in South Africa, and then that's how he ended up coming to Old Dominion.
Have you before Izak? Did you recruit any players from South Africa?
Good question. Did we ever recruit a player from South Africa before Izak? I don't recall. Definitely not a male player, and definitely not a male player. Now, the irony of it is when we recruited Izak, we did recruit Johan van Ruin. And because, so we had some female South African players. So so yeah, we had female, but not a male. But when we recruited Izak, we got Johan van Ruin too, which was kind of cool because it's a story that goes on around the world. Johan van Ruin was the best player in the 12 and unders, in the 14 and unders, because he was that consistent guy that got the ball. So, the curse of death of any tennis player is to be number one in the 12s, because that's the kid who pushes, doesn't make unforced errors. Well, Izak would tell the story that he would go to tournament when he was 12 and 14, and if he had to play Johan van Ruin, the parents would just check him out of the hotel that morning. Because, man, you got no chance against this kid. And Izak would spray enough balls, and Johan would win. So when Johan came, Johan ended up playing like 6 and 7, and Izak became number 1 and so forth. So at that time, we actually brought the 12 and under sensation, So anyway, so that's how we got Izak. Now, and I think he was our first South African male. Yes.
Why, when talking to his dad, why did you think college tennis would be the better route for him compared to going the professional route right out of high school?
Well, I mean, there's two things. Why did I think? The first thing is that whether I thought it or not was irrelevant. I had to recruit him to come to my college, so you never know what you're going to end up saying. Like, I would love to have, like, Brian Bolin taped. Like, man, what did you tell the guy? How did you talk him into this one? So I wanted him to come to Old Dominion for sure. But Izak hadn't had when you go out there on the pro tour and you're going to try to make it, and whatever making it is, like people think making it is like 600 in the world or 500. So if we're talking about making it where you can play Grand Slam tennis, at least be in the qualies and compete for the spots in the main draw, Izak was too young, too rare, too raw, I should say. And even though I hadn't seen him play, but hell, he had a hitch in the serve. So anyway, he just wasn't ready, and so college tennis. And as it turned out, it was the right path for him. But he just wasn't ready to compete and to go through that college tennis grind for sure.
So talk about his arrival and where the team was at and how good you guys were once he stepped on campus.
Well, his arrival to college tennis was rocky. I mean, it was just rocky. Those first couple of months was just this first semester was just rocky. It was so. For example, what transpired there was he was trying to qualify for the U.S. Open Juniors. So we had worked out a schedule that he was going to go play these tournaments and chase the points where he could qualify for the U.S. Open Juniors. And so on that travel, there was a tournament in another country, and then there were 2 tournaments in Sweden. So one of our former players met him in Sweden, Patrick Binkowski, and he said Izak got off the plane in Sweden in January, and he didn't have a coat. And it's freezing. So anyway, Izak went over there, played a couple of tournaments, didn't have great results, and he just called me and says, "Man, I'm ready to come now. I don't want to play the next tournament. I mean, it's dark over here, it's cold, and so forth." And so anyway, so then he comes, and then it took a while to get him eligible because they have this exam over there called a matric, and that's what you got to get through to become NCAA eligible. And his was graded on higher grade as opposed to lower grade, and it's a lot of essay answers, so it had to get recalibrated. So the bottom line, he didn't become eligible to late February. So when he first became eligible to play for us, it was late February once he was cleared through the NCAAs. And Izak was a great academic student, but this was just a technicality and a timetable of things to get him eligible. So anyway, so he became eligible for, I think, the UPenn match, and I think he played 2 behind Zoltan at the time. And that first semester, maybe he was 9 and 7, and then it ended in the conference tournament. I think we lost in the semis maybe, and Izak had a bloody nose in the last match. So they're shoving stuff. The trainers are shoving stuff up his nose to keep him going. So that semester was a debacle for him looking back, and I don't think I'd have remembered it unless you would have asked that question.
So his first 2 years at Old Dominion, where did he play, and what how was the team doing, and what was the doubles status?
He let's see. Nothing special happened in those 2 years. We had some young players, so everybody was maturing together. You had Zoltan on the team, Colleen, and so everybody was starting to mature together. And I remember his first fall semester, Izak was 4-4. He was 4-4. He lost in the pre-qualies of the All-American. Now, what makes that relevant is what he ends up doing later. So those first 2 years, and then towards the end of his sophomore year, he got his big ranked win against a VCU guy, Florian, that was about 50 in the country, somewhere around that. So when Izak, he ended his sophomore year with a ranked win.
So when was it at that first ranked win? You said you see something special in this guy, and maybe he can take off.
What was weird is that summer. Well, he got the ranked win, but that summer he also played Norfolk Yacht member guest, and he played with Wayne Wilbanks. And I hope Wayne's not listening because Wayne's just not that good, and so. He and Wayne Wilbanks beat Roy Beskin, who's a Virginia Tech Hall of Famer, and Alexander Concado, one of my former players, who had a national ranking. So Alexander had a national ranking, Roy Beskin, who's older, but Izak beat them in the member guest in I think it was the semifinals. And so says, hey, congratulations, man, you're learning how to play tennis, you know. And then I'm not saying the member guest triggered that career, but between the ranked win and he was starting to mature to really get it.
So fall of his junior year is when when things started to piece together?
Yeah, the fall of his junior year was that's when he and Zoltan, they won the regional doubles tournament at North Carolina. And that's back when the region had all the ACC schools in it. So they won the regional doubles tournament, which got them to the national indoors. So they won the ITA regional, and they got them to the national indoors. And then they made the finals of the national indoors. So regional champion doubles, and making the finals of that fall, making the finals of the indoors in doubles. That definitely got it going.
So how was the environment and practices? Did you go about kind of coaching in a different way or adapt into any different methods when he kind of started to take off and become?
Well, we had a couple of concepts going on there, and we would use this terminology: defense, neutral, maneuver, attack, conclude. Defense, just get the ball back of the net. Neutral was an even rally. Maneuver, moving the person around, getting the ball out of the hitting zone. Attack, coming to the net. Conclude is the intention to hit a winner. So that was terminology that we used. So we found in one practice session, the other players didn't really we had a couple players at the bottom that really didn't have good intents on their serve. They were always just neutral, put the ball into play. So when we broke it down and asked them what their intent was, they said, well, my intent's neutral. So we brought Izak over, and Izak said, I go, Izak, you ever think neutral on the serve? He says, no, it's either maneuver, attack, or conclude. So he's either going to kick it wide, or he's going to serve and volley, or he's going to go for the heater where it doesn't come back. So that went on. So then on return of serve, we asked Izak, hey, what are you thinking on return of serve? He goes, man, I don't think about return of serve because I'm going to hold the whole time. And I had no idea that Izak thought that way. So I go, man, this is why he's putting guys in the national rankings, because at that time, Izak's national ranking was pretty solid, in the 50 and above. But he would hiccup and lose to some guy that he kept around. So he would so anyway, he had no intent on the return of serve. Like, hey, Izak, let's just go neutral, put in and play. Or second serve, hey, let's attack, kind of like Sampras, attack, because that. And then when Izak attacked, the other guy would, if he didn't like the feeling, he would start to spin in the first serve, and Izak would get more chucks at the first serve. And then So then we started conducting our practices around that concept. And it was one of the concepts when I came home and I saw you and Connor playing Xbox, and you were playing baseball, and I think Jeter's up to bat, and there's 2 strikes, and this tip would come up and say, hey, with 2 strikes, you got to become a contact hitter. You can't really hit a home run. So then we applied that Xbox to practice, and that we would call the plays. So, Izak, here you go. Second serve, go attack, because look at deuce, we're just going to have to play this neutral. At love 40, you can shoot a rocket and go for a conclude, but sometimes Izak, you just got to get the part. You got to play the situation here. I mean, it's 4-all deuce, man. Let's be that. And then, so when we went to the national indoors, I actually coached them on every return of serve. I said, all right, here we go. Let's play neutral. Here, all right, second serve. Here we go. Attack. I mean, of course, in college tennis, you can pretty much coach in any time. So that's kind of those 5 concepts, along with a little bit of Xbox flavor. We applied that to practice.
So, so his junior year is when he made the semifinal better in 3 national tournaments.
Yeah, he went on the run there where the junior year, I think we might have got the All-American semifinals in singles. That tournament was in the fall, and then we probably picked up a doubles semifinals there. At the NCAAs, I remember his junior year, it's about the round of 16. He had a couple of wins. And I remember the loss in the NCAAs. That one kind of stung. But, man, he played some good tennis. I think he lost to a kid from Vanderbilt. And, I mean, he played beautiful. And the Ohio State coach, Ty, I mean, the dude gives me like the jinx before the tournament. And he comes up to me and he goes, man, how does it feel to have a player that can win this thing 2 times in a row? I mean, we haven't even won it once, you know what I mean? So I think that's just that high-level coaching where they're trying to jinx you. So I think the Ohio State coach, he jinxed me on that thing. But anyway, when Izak lost that day, I remember going on and tapping him on the leg. I mean, he played a hell of a match. So he would play to win the tournament. He wouldn't play well just to go deep in the tournament. He always played to win the tournament. And I think I just saw something about Nike and Prefontaine. When Prefontaine ran in the Olympics, he finished 4th, I believe. But he made some people win the race and some people make the race. That day, Izak, he made the tournament. He made the match, but he didn't win the match. I mean, the level that he was performing at, and I mean, he's going for lines. He's going for small amounts of the court, and whereas often in college tennis, some people are just grinding, hoping that you miss. And they're not going for it, which gets you to the higher level. So he was Prefontaine that day. So that's kind of how I remember that one stung, but it was that was the end of his junior year. That thing.
So talk about one of his runs at the NCAA tournament, and which one out of the few that he had, which one sticks out to you the most?
Well, the two that stick out to me the most. One doubles, one singles. So his doubles, this was, I think his senior year was he made a singles run, and that was at Texas A&M. So this had to be his junior year, the doubles. In the doubles, the senior year made that. So in the doubles, his Zoltan was a senior. So Zoltan was a senior, and Izak was a junior. So in the doubles there, he, we're trying to get Zoltan to be Izak was already an All-American due to his performance in singles. So really Zoltan, his partner, for him to become an All-American would have to get to the quarterfinals. Because you either got to get to the quarterfinals or be ranked in the top 8 or seeded in the top 8. So anyway, they're going to have to get to the quarterfinals. So in the first round, we're playing some team, but the team has an injury and withdraws. So we get the alternate team, which is Benjamin Becker from Baylor and his partner. And Benjamin Becker's already won the NCAA tournament, or he will win the NCAA tournament, I think, that year, or maybe he'd already won it. But anyway, So they got to beat the Baylor team. So they beat the Baylor team. And then the second round, which is, that's the round of 16 in the second round. This is to become the All-American. They have to beat a Tennessee team. And that one I kind of coached pretty hard. I was calling everything possible because this Tennessee team is crafty to hold serve, especially for Zoltan. Zoltan had these games, and he had deuce scoring then. These games, like 10 deuce games, they were like knockouts. So anyway, they win. Then in the quarterfinals, they had to beat a UCLA team. And Billy Barton's teams at UCLA are always good. So anyway, he had to beat a UCLA team. So in the semifinals, they played Georgia. And it was the Giants. Because Izak 6'4", Zoltan 6'4", and Georgia had Isner 6'10", Bo Hodge 6'4". So I felt like a midget on every crossover. But they ended up losing that match 7-5 in the third set. So in the doubles, he made that run. That was his junior year. And then Izak, his senior year, is he goes to the NCAAs, and he's never made the semifinals. And, just really only his second year. So in the first round, Izak plays, and this was in Texas A&M. So in the first round, his senior year, he beats the number one player in the country. He has to play Sam Warburg from Stanford. So he beats him. Then he goes on to win. He beats a guy from Air Force that was like 21-2, just a disciplined guy. So what does that get him to? The round of 16. So he's in, 64. So he's in the round of 16. He plays Benjamin Becker, the defending NCAA champion. Just a serving duel. He wins. Gets to the quarterfinals. He plays number one guy from UCLA, Pac-10, whatever they have, whatever player of the year, and that guy would win the NCAAs the next year. So Izak beats him. So that's quarters. In the semis, he plays a French guy, and he always had a thing for French guys. So he was always annoyed by them, and he says, "Man, I'm just never going to lose to a French guy." That's like the kiss of death. Well, anyway, so his senior year, he loses in the semifinals, losing to a French guy. And that was the only tournament, or the only college matches that his parents saw him play. They flew in for the NCAA tournament, and Izak was just so relaxed and performed so well, getting to the semifinals, to the Final Four, which is pretty cool because that's Izak's trophy right there. He always thought he got to keep the trophies, and I go, nah, that's an NCAA violation for you to keep the trophy. Only I could keep the trophy. So hopefully he never really finds out about that. But anyway, his mother would watch him play, and she would look like she's on a roller coaster. She just couldn't look, and so forth. So anyway, so that's how his college career ended, making the semifinals of the NCAA.
So you talked about Ohio State coach Ty Tucker, who's still at Ohio State.
Yes.
I think they had a shot at winning the national championship this year. But what were the reactions from other Power 5 schools seeing the success of this mid-major kid and his doubles partner for 2 years? Well,
some of the reactions is that hell they wanted to recruit him. They would have loved for him to. The big boys, they always figure out how the mid-majors. Hey man, how did you get this guy? Or how did you develop this guy? Or a combination of the others. So. For us, it's always, being a mid-major, to beat Stanford's and UCLA's and Notre Dame's and Georgia's. Actually, to beat Georgia, I don't think we've ever beaten a player from Georgia, but the other schools we have, that's just kind of cool. I'm not saying it's David against Goliath, but it's certainly the haves against the have-nots. So anyway, that was always kind of fun, to do that.
So after that semifinal defeat, his senior year, what was kind of the next step for Izak, and what were the thoughts going through your head, his head, and where were you guys at a meeting standpoint, wrapping up his college career?
Definitely, he was going to play pro tennis. There was no thing. So with pro tennis, after he graduated, and we put together a plan for him to go. He needed to fundraise, so we put together a package, and people bought shares in him, knowing that they wouldn't get a return on their investment because the prize money just wasn't going to be that good for those first couple of years. And then we got him a coach, and the coach was Rodrigo Leander. So I think about $20-some thousand was raised, and $20-some thousand raised. So he went on the road, and I gave him and his coach Rodrigo. They took my van for about a month or 2 months. I didn't see the van, trying to get Izak his first ATP points so he can continue to go up. And what was really cool during that time was that fundraising time. Former players, Alexander Kinkada, Nicholas Kohler, Johan Vaverud, 2 of those were in the national rankings. They played at Old Dominion. And they're young in their careers, maybe in their mid-20s to 30. There was a local money tournament that was really the foundation of creating the UTR. And it's funny, Alexander Kinkado, Johan Varver, and Nicholas Kohler were all founders with us when we created the UTR. But this isn't a UTR story, but this how it ties in. So Izak is going to go in the pro career. They play in a local money tournament that was, at the time, level-based, like UTR. And they won prize money. And maybe it was $1,000 to the winner, $500 to semifinals. So they all, or $500 to the runner-up. So they decided before the tournament that whatever the money they won, they were going to give to Izak to be a professional player. And none of those guys were ever on Izak's team. So that's cool. That was such, the money was good. And the coach, Rodrigo Leander, was on their team. That was just really cool because you really realized that, with Izak and players, it really takes a village. It takes a village to make a player.
So after he got his first ATP point, when did you first realize that Izak could be a top 150 player in the world?
Well, I mean, as far as realizing that, we always thought that he could be something special, because the one thing about being special is you need talent, but you also got to want to do it. Izak loved the travel, and he loved the competition, and he had a big picture where he was always playing to win the tournament. So he just went up the rankings. The hardest thing about going up his rankings was that first point. I mean, that took him like a month and a half to get that. He was grinding away in those qualies of those features tournaments, and he would lose. And then when he got the first point and he got into the main draw, he didn't stay too long at the futures level, and he kept going up. And I think you and I saw one of his best runs where at the Hall of Fame tournament in Rhode Island. He was in the quarterfinals of singles, beating some real players out of qualies. He was in the quarterfinals of singles and doubles of that tournament, and I think he lost to Isner 5-6 in the quarters. So we were sitting there going, man, he's going to win singles and doubles of both tournaments. And so anytime you think like that, maybe it doesn't come to fruition. So to see him to flourish through that. And he really just wanted to be a singles player. He played doubles. He never wanted to be a doubles specialist. He felt that was like playing pickleball or something. He just didn't want to do that. So
I know he had multiple. He tried to qualify for the U.S. Open multiple times. Came up short. Got in the main draw of Wimbledon. But I remember Izak would always. He would take different routes to the U.S. Open. Sometimes he would drive down from Norfolk to U.S. Open. Sometimes he would fly from South Africa. Talk about some of the experiences when he would train down here and you guys would go together from Norfolk to New York.
Right. The Chevy Astro van, the 1995 Chevy Astro van, played a huge role in professional tennis for Izak and Tippy, which is another story, one of our top female players. So I remember Izak and Rodrigo training down here, or Rodrigo was going to meet him at the Open. So yeah, we took the van a couple of times, up 13, leaving Norfolk, and up 13, getting on the New Jersey Turnpike, which was Izak's favorite. one of the times we went up there, see, Connor was my other son. Connor was with us, and I don't think you were with us. No, were you on probation? No. I think you flew up with Mom. But anyway, Connor was with us, and the transmission kept slipping, every time you stopped. And Izak was just ragging me about the transmission. Like, man, it shows some respect, man, because the van, I gave it to you for a month and a half. You probably messed up the transmission. So we would have these moments driving into the New York in the 1995 Chevy Astro van. At the time, probably had 150,000 miles on it. And that was kind of cool. And then later on with both, and I think that was 2007, somewhere right about there, 2007, both Tippy, I think it's 7 or 6, somewhere right in there, both Tippy and Izak were in the main draw of Wimbledon. So that was kind of cool. Hey, once you're in the main draw of Wimbledon, haven't you made it? Like Izak and I were watching TV one time, and Donald Young's 80 in the world at the U.S. Open. And McEnroe was saying, hey, do you think this guy will ever make it? Referring to Donald Young. And Izak goes, man, for my country, you've made it when you become 80 in the world. But in the American culture, making it is winning slams. Or really that's what making it is.
So kind of going along that route, talk about the feeling of having the player in the main draw of Wimbledon, but also, very successful challenger player, and trying to qualify for Grand Slams. I know qualified for one, but came up short a few times, really short by maybe a set or two.
Yeah, coming up short where?
U.S. Open.
Yeah, the U.S. Open, the dude never performed well there. I mean, Izak performed his best in traditional environments. The Hall of Fame. The Wimbledons. I mean, even in college tennis, he performed best in the traditional environments. Not yelling and screaming and all that kind of stuff. That was never his thing. He performed best when it was just tennis. And I remember at the U.S. Open, he got some freebies. He's getting his Wilson package, and so he got the rackets and so forth and the clothes. So they gave him some shoes, and they were black. And he double faulted maybe a couple more times than normal. And he kept bouncing the ball, looking down to those freaking black shoes, thinking, man, who would ever play in black tennis shoes? So U.S. Open, I mean, he won some matches, didn't make it out of qualies. And of course, it's a compliment just getting there, because you're top couple hundred in the world to do that. And he was close to direct entry a couple of times, but anyway, he always performed best in the traditional tennis environments.
That's all I have.
That's all you have? All right, this was good stuff, man. Hey, thanks. Let's do it again.